so much. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I did touch base with our timer, and the timer has changed the name from, I guess, Ukrainian alphabet to English alphabet, and it looks nothing like it. And I was like, is this even the same guy? Anyways, this is my first foray into Ukrainian or Ukrainian culture. I sort of know sort of the shape of your alphabet, but I'm not familiar with it at all. So this is really my pleasure to be here. I've been a Toastmaster for I don't know how many fingers and toes do I have. It's been a long time. I've discovered Toastmasters shortly after I graduated, and I'm coming up next year. I'll be 20 years anniversary from my university graduation. So that's been a long time. So I'm also, like most of you here, I'm not a native speaker of English, as you can tell. I'm not. I am Chinese in descent. That's my heritage, and I'm going to show you some of these later on. I have always loved the arts, or literary arts, or opposed to science. I love words, so diction is something that is near and dear to my heart. So I'm thrilled to be here to be sharing with you a workshop that I put together called Diction on Diction. So this is what you really have to pay attention to if you want to cook up a message that leaves an impression for your audience. So like when you were crafting your international speech for the contest, there are only so many universal themes out there. You talk about, don't give up, try again. You talk about the universal theme of maybe trying new things, the merit of, trying new things or not having bias or whatever it is. And it all comes down to how you say it, because the universal themes are there. You want to resonate your audience. So it comes down to how you package your message and how do you make it memorable. So I'm going to give you my secret recipe here, because like any seasoned chef, we pick and choose our choice ingredients. So here it is. I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see it?
Yes, everything all right.
Perfect. All right. So dishing on diction, talking of content that communicates and connects. So this is a very important thing. And I find it even more important now that we are communicating through this really, really cold screen that really separates us. So it really helps for you to bring more colors and speak with more visual clue and use this strategy that I have shared here to communicate and convey your message. All right, so here's, I already touched upon this a little bit. Why should you care about diction? Well, a well-crafted narrative with the appropriate diction could help you connect and resonate with the audience. And just like how, look at that picture of that roasted chicken. Doesn't that come across as delicious? So it's all about the packaging. It's all in English, there is that saying about it's about the sizzles and the steak. It's not just that you have a filet mignon. It's not quite, doesn't really cut it. Angus beef, Kobe beef, Wagyu, doesn't quite cut it. It's also about the packaging. So what words do you use, okay? And then make sure you make it more memorable by how you package it. You'll be speaking with a certain style. You may be known as a very humorous speaker. You may be known as a very descriptive speaker. Well, I would like to be known as a very creative person. So the way I speak is exactly how it is. I make analogies, I draw comparison, parallels, I use alliteration, these literary devices to set myself apart. So, and hopefully you inspire them into action. Whatever message that you share with them, with your choice of diction, it also persuade them more, motivate them more into action. So there is also a hidden benefit when you work on, when you really think harder about diction. There's also a hidden benefit. Like I said earlier on, like a lot of you guys, English is my second language. I actually speak two dialects of Chinese, both Cantonese and Mandarin, but that's sort of just one language. And English is my second language. So I've always thought to myself, when you can use your foreign language, how do you know that you have used it? You know it fluently, you could use it well. That's when you could say the same thing multiple times with same meaning. So you could convey it in many different ways. So this is how I gauge it. So instead of saying something is small, you could say that it's tiny. You have, instead of saying that you go about what are you going to do today, and then using a very generic word, do, you could say, what is your adventure today? So conveying the same meaning, roughly the same meaning, in multiple ways is a hallmark that you have truly mastered the language. You could switch out components. You could, just like how you cook, when you run out of, purple onion, what do? You use onion. When you don't have onion, well, you skip it altogether, right? So this is what I mean. Some people say, when you could dream in a foreign language, that's when you know that you are fluent. Well, I hope I don't dream all night. And a lot of time when you dream, you don't remember it, right? When you wake up in the morning. So, here's another way. When you know that you have truly mastered a language, you could say things exactly what you mean, but in multiple ways. And you could actually fine tune how you mean, what you mean, with the appropriate choice of diction. So here's a little bit of inspiration for all of you. Hopefully you would feel more confident and more interested in using the English language. But trust me, this type of technique that I'm saying, you could apply it in your other language. This is a strategy of how to use diction, how to say things with color or in a more interesting way. And it could apply it, you could apply it in your native tongue. Nothing wrong with that. So here is the agenda today. I'm going to share with you my method to madness. And I have 3 prompting questions to ask you guys whenever you think about using diction. There's a way of looking at it. It's not just doing it for the sake of doing it. And then I'm going to share with you my technique, which is using analogy in the narrative. And you have been hearing everything about from my workshop title to my introduction. I've been using this cooking analogy. So I'm going to share with you how I deduce to that. And then we're also going to do an exercise together. So sorry, I should have said it to our Toastmaster, Zoom master earlier. If we can, we could have a breakout room also. And if we could get ready for that, that would be great. And then I'm going to touch on the second and the third point. I couldn't find my latest version of my slide. There was an update on my computer. I don't know where it went, but I will touch upon it. Unfortunately, I don't have slides on those, but that is roughly what I'm going to do today. Okay. Okay, method to the madness. Okay, we talk about using diction. Well, diction, which is the basic building block of your sentences, your word choice, when you come to looking at it, you have to approach it in this way, logically. Think about these two scenarios. There's one, on one hand, you're talking to a bunch of youngster high school students on a career night. So I'm there talking to them about the fantastic, wonderful career as an interior designer. Okay, and maybe there was other people who's going to talk to them about, the boring career of an IT professional or engineer or that sort of thing. But consider that scenario. And also there is, you are doing a project debrief in front of the project, in front of all the board of directors. You are also, or you're talking to your senior management per se. So two very different scenarios to audience for sure. So the first question you ask yourself, who are you talking to? Different audience, different scenario, different levity of situation. One is very casual. You're talking to them as, big sister, big brother, letting them know about your career choice. And then the other one, you're trying to project a very professional image, make them, or a very trustworthy image. And then you also have to think about, can you talk figuratively, or would they be very seriously and take you literally on everything? You probably, if you're presenting about the year-end balance sheet, you probably don't want to make any joke or make a reference about, sinking ships, or going into the red or bleeding or that sort of thing. All that is have a negative connotation to that. You don't want to joke about it. You don't want to make an analogy that is about navigating in the sea and then you're getting lost. So that's probably not going to be good. But when you're talking to high school students, you could perhaps be more engaging. You could talk in a more casual manner. You could draw in different references from pop culture per se. And this is a true story. The one time in my own Toastmasters club meeting, we were doing table topic, and then there was some sort of, who's your, something along the lines of favorite singer, something like that, or was it like something like this or that? Do you prefer Frank Sinatra or Billie Holiday? And I kid you not, they do not know those names. Those kids today, they don't know who's the greatest singer of all time, which is Frank Sinatra. But and they don't know those names because now they only know Justin Bieber's and or Shawn Mendes or Drake. So this is about the audience. When you make these references, do they know what you're talking about? So be very careful, very mindful about your audience. And the second question you ask to yourself, what are you trying to achieve? And to inform them of something, just like the career night, you're just sharing your experience. You're informing them, your experience, your career choice. Or are you also trying to inspire them? Or for the board of directors, are you just trying to inform them or trying to persuade them to make change? So there is a slight difference in the tone or in how you're going to go about it. And then the last question you ask yourself, when I am making use of diction, when I'm thinking about diction now in these scenarios, am I using it as a main ingredient, or am I using it as a spice that is sprinkled throughout? I would like to say that the cooking analogy that I have given, I have put into the workshop is really like a spice that I've sprinkled throughout the meeting, throughout my entire workshop. It is something that I keep on coming back to, or what we call a repetition or a refrain, or it could be just one line at the very end that is making an impression, or it could be an example at the middle of your presentation that highlight what you are trying to explain. So another method I like is what I call the bookend method. You introduce something at the beginning, and then you also sum it up at the end. Perhaps you could say something that, okay, Korean night, all of you guys may be lost at sea, and then you could, tonight is the night that you're presented with many, many choices, and then sometimes you feel like you're lost at sea, and then you could, at the very end of your presentation, you could say that, after I share my story, hopefully you find your internal compass and you can find your way out. So you're using that analogy as a bookend to sort of package up your whole presentation. That's also a great way of using that. So on the right hand side, there's a little chart. This is a chart that my friend who's an English professor in a college level shared with me when I was putting together this workshop. This is talking about any rhetorical situation. You think about the purpose, the audience, the message, the context and culture, which I touch upon, the Justin Bieber versus Frank Sinatra. There's not a lot of, no one agree with me that Frank Sinatra is the best singer of all time. No one heard of Frank Sinatra? No? Yeah? Yes, no? Okay, two. Okay. Thank you, Sergey. Two people have agreed with me. Great. And then the writer is also your writing style, your speaking style. I have a very speaking style, and I'm sure, when compared to someone else, just like how you think, Obama has a very different speaking style than Steve Jobs. So everyone has his style, and this is your way of trying to find out or trying to craft your style or design it. Okay, we're going to get to the main part of the presentation. Main part of the presentation is about using analogy in your narrative. So I'm going to share with you my secret recipe of how to create the analogy. And there are three types of ingredients. Okay, so this is essentially another way of thinking at it is just our figure of speech. Take a sentence, break it down. What do we have, right? So we have people and things, which are our nouns and pronouns. So this is who is doing the action or what is being done. Okay. People and things in action described in detail. So in action, those are the verbs or spatial words. Sometimes verbs, there's always a proposition after it. So those are called phrasal words. And then we have the details. We want to talk about you want to talk about how that action is being carried out. Is it done well? Was it done fast? This is the details that you want. And in my industry, in design, there's a famous phrase, no, it's not less is more, because this is now in Diction, more is more, okay? The phrase I was talking about, alluding to, is devils is in the details. So in my field, it is talked to death. Devils is in the details, and this is essentially it. While my boyfriend and I went for a walk. Well, so what? Tell me more. Describe it in detail. So it was a beautiful day. We were taking a walk. It almost feel like we are. I could envision us being 80 years old, walking together, stumbling without shaking cane, something like that. So let's look at it in details. Nouns and pronouns. Okay. Earlier on, I said that I'm a consummate chef, and I want to inspire everyone to be a consummate chef. So you guys are not workshop learner. You guys are not Toastmaster. You guys are aspiring master chef or aspiring Michelin star chefs. Okay. All of a sudden, can you see that hero halo around your head? All of a sudden, every one of you just sounds so much more impressive, right? And then the next thing is we could borrow celebrity figure and to share our thoughts. I'm going to come back and give you an example on that. I also promise you that in this workshop, I would be giving you plenty of serving of tips. I will give you healthy doses of tips or examples. Okay, so if you are building a cooking analogy, this is sort of the ingredient that you have to start gathering, building up. Okay, there is a buffet of tips. There is a buffet of example or healthy helpings of example and tips. Okay? And we could talk about. I could talk about today's Toastmaster meeting. The workshop is the entree, and then later on you guys would be having, I guess that would be a dessert of table topic session. So use these as a substitute, for instead of saying the next portion of the meeting is going to be table topic master. It's like after having the entree, let's go ahead and have the dessert of the table topic session. And last thing, feel free to substitute, to use ingredients, different cooking ingredients, food. When you use sweet red pepper versus habaneros, there is a difference. Anybody else knows what's the difference? Am I the only foodie here? Or a Scots bonnet? Anybody know that pepper? Supposedly the hottest pepper out there. So when you say that, oh, my mother-in-law, oh, she is like the habanero of the family. Well, you have an impression of what your mother-in-law is like, right? And then I also said you could tap into the celebrity figure. Well, who knows who this is? Like, anybody knows? Unmute yourself and yell it out.
Gordon Ramsay.
Anybody? Yeah, Gordon Ramsay. He's famous there too, right? Like I wasn't sure. I think they are pretty. I think they are pretty famous, but I never know. The next person you gotta know. Anybody know this guy? I know he wasn't looking straight into the camera, but he's known as the naked chef. He's also from Britain. It's Jamie Oliver. So, oops, sorry. Let me go back to the. Oops. Okay. Okay, Jamie Oliver. So here it is, two very different personalities. Gordon Ramsay, I think he really primarily just stay in Las Vegas now. He runs the Hell's Kitchen. There's also a reality TV show. And this is him. Most of the time, he's yelling at someone or swearing at someone, you call this food? This is rubbish. All right. And then you have Jamie Oliver, who really becoming a wholesome family man. Look at him smiling at the food, homemade food, really charming, really kind. When you say that, when you say to someone, someone asks you, how was the meeting? How was the new client? The new client, the project manager is really, Gordon Ramsay would be afraid of him. Then wow, what is that person like? So feel free to tap into the celebrity figure. So when we are using a cooking analogy, so you would for sure be tapping into celebrity like these master chefs. And when you are using another type of analogy, later on when we go into our breakout group, we will get to work on different kind of analogies. Say you have a sports analogy. You will be dealing with, you'll be using sports figure celebrity to add on to your diction. So if you are like me, building a culinary analogy, what would you do as verb? Well, for cooking is easy. There's all these different verbs from the entire meal prep and cooking process that you could pick from. Now there is a difference when you are cooking something, broiling something, grilling something, or simmering. Percolate, that's a word that I really like. I would say, I'm percolating. I'm thinking on an issue. I will just let it simmer for a bit, and there's no rush to it. I'm sure you have heard of this phrase. I'm putting something on the back burner, which is, something that you're just parking it. You're not dealing with it. Okay, and then you could also say that I'm cutting up something, but you are slicing and dicing. Here it is. I'm doubling down with the what we call the rhyming of the word, a pairing of the slicing and dicing, or like what we are doing now, mincing words. This is also something I love doing. I don't just chop it up. I minced it. It implied that I go over it so finely that I've minced the word. I'm mincing the words, and from a lot of my friends who also are published writer, that's what you do. You have to write it, rewrite it, re-edit it, and literally you are slow cooking your story or your book, or you're mincing your words. Here it is, some facial words that I was talking about. Dishing out. This is on my workshop title. Dishing out on something. Something is boiling over. It implies that it did not go well. It boiled over. And then this is what's so good about the culinary analogy. There's also the eating part. You could eat something, you could taste something, or you could devour something. And I hope that after you heard my presentation, you get to lap it all up and devour all the content, everything that I am sharing with you now. Lastly, there is also serving food. You are serving someone food and you are plating something. So there's also the part that you could borrow to add colors in your phrases. Last but not least, we have the adjective and adverb. Okay, so this is the fun part. You could talk about how delicious the food are, how yummy it is, how scrumptious it looked, just like that roast chicken. That was a really good picture, right? The roast chicken You could talk about, this is especially true when you talk about steak. It is juicy, it's sizzling. And then also we could talk about how not good it is. It is undercooked. Okay, this idea, this proposal is undercooked, or this idea is overdone. Either of those are not good. Actually, even if it's in the middle, if it's half baked, it's not good. You don't want to be under, you don't want to be over, you don't want to be half done also. So, when you talk about it, idea being undercooked, overdone, half baked, or burnt, it gives people an idea of what you're saying. And then also these are very interesting phrases that you could use to, or we call it idioms. You could say, have your cake and eat it. You could say that something is the icing on the cake. And now, I think right now, timer, I can't see you. I see you now. Perfect. So I think we could have 10 minutes of time in the breakout room. And I would like to, right now we have, how many people we have now in the audience? We have 20 people. That's perfect. We could have 4 breakout groups with 5 people, and then we could go into, I'll give each group a analogy to work with, and then you're going to try to come up with like celebrity figure, that verb, those 3 ingredients. Let me go back to that. To that slide so that everyone could see it.
Can you repeat what exactly we need to do in breakout room?
Yes, let me bring back the slide. Okay, so when we get to the breakout room, I'm going to give group 1 an analogy, which is going to be sports. Okay. And then I'm going to give group 2 an analogy to work with, which is travel. And then group 3 is going to have the analogy of gardening. And then group 4 is going to have the analogy of sailing or navigation at sea. So, actually, group 4 is going to do, I think it's pretty easier. Group 4 is going to do weather. Okay. So within your group, you may just go ahead and take a screenshot of this. Maybe that will help. Then you're going to work on coming up with, just like my slide, under people and things, what are some of the words that you could come up with that is sports related? How about in actions? What are some of the actions that you could come up with that is associated with weather? Say the described in details portion, come up with something that, go with gardening. So you have your theme, so come up with the word that forms this analogy. And that's the same process of how I've used to write my biography for this workshop, write the content. I came up with these big headings of words, and then when I have this master list of ingredients, then I would be able to use it, swap it out in my presentation, my speech, something like that. So I'm going to give
Janice, I already create breakout rooms. So the first room, the keyword is, I just wanted to rename groups.
Perfect. First one is sports.
Sports. Okay, great.
Yeah.
The second one is?
The second one is travel.
Repeat again. What?
Travel, travel.
Okay, travel. Great. Mm-hmm.
And the third analogy is gardening.
Okay.
And the fourth analogy is weather.
Great.
Okay. So I think within the group, I want to have everyone work on it, say for 10 minutes, and then come back and try to have one person present what you came up with for the group. You could, that's a 1 minute presentation. So we'll have 10 minutes inside the room. And then when we come back, we'll quickly take that up. And then we'll also add on to it as a group. So I'm going to stop sharing because it's pretty boring just looking at this. So any question before I join a room? Any question from anyone? Unmute and speak up. No? Good. I'm going to. But I'm sure everyone got the hang of it. So actually, I'm going to see. We have a late arrival, Igor. So I have, before the breakout room, I've given them 4 topics of to build the vocabulary, to build the analogy on, to brainstorm the vocabulary list. Something that before I get into hearing your thoughts, I want to share with you how I come up with these 4 analogies. I always pick something that is like a universal experience. Cooking is pretty non-judgmental. Even if you don't cook, you always eat. So it's yes. You know, everyone would be able to relate to it, right? So with sports, whether you play sport, you may watch sport. So it's pretty easy for people to. So I before COVID start, when this workshop I have started like even before COVID, and one of the analogies that I was building on is, you know, illness, sickness, pandemic. That was the word I had, but obviously you don't want to use that in an analogy now. It's because that is not so kind. But you know, talk about this. You know, so and so is the cancer of the company. Then you get an idea. Oh, he's the COVID-19 of the company. So my point is, when you are building this, pick something that everyone could relate to and pretty harmless, and you won't be stepping on someone's toes otherwise. So thank you for the timers report update. So let me have a volunteer from the floor. So we have sports, travel, garden, weather. Who wants to go first? We have Eric. Eric is from the weather group. So go ahead, take the floor.
All right. Well, I want to tell you about this concert we went to see as our team. It was supposed to be a really hot act, but when we got there and started sitting in on it, the line sort of ran cold. It was supposed to be a comedian but he used a lot of dry humor. And we really couldn't relate to it. So we were kind of feeling really unhappy about it. And we were kind of thinking we threw our money to the wind. And so deciding what to do, should we get up or go? The decision was made for us because it started raining cats and dogs. So we had to get up and move back to our cars. our brains were a little bit foggy at that point. And what happened was we wandered back in to the auditorium instead of back to the car. But miraculously, the comedian started performing better in the rain. And all of a sudden, it started drying up and a rainbow appeared behind him. So it turned out to be a great show. So everyone should realize hope springs eternal. Thank you.
Wow, great. Not only you come up with lots of vocabulary, you also put it into a little story. Fantastic. There's a lot of adjectives that I heard, being dry, hot, cold. But let's not forget, let's break it down. People and things in action described in details. What are the people and things? So a little, not so much on the people part, aside from the weatherman, the person who do the weather report in the news, but there's lots of things you could, hailstorm, thunderstorm, tornado, typhoon, tsunami, all these you could be, oh, so-and-so is, a force to be reckoned with, and she is the typhoon of the family. What kind of destructive power she have. I could be talking about a little kid. Lots of action, all the weather pattern that you could have, snowing, hailing, all that, raining cats and dogs. That's also a very descriptive phrase. So well done weather group. So who would like to go next? Let's go back in my order. So group 4, weather have gone. So let's go with group 3, gardening group. Just share with us your, do you need to share screen? Would you like to share screen or?
Yes, okay. Sort of going after Eric feels a little bit, well, this is what we came up with, was our understanding. Our topic is gardening, and we sort of try to come up with words and phrases regarding, well, that sort of describe gardening.
Do you want to go through the column, people and things? What are under
people and things? Well, the one that we all appreciate, especially Ukrainians, are our strong Ukrainian tractors, how they're doing during these hard times. Also, gardening is a decoration, the greenery, sort of making shapes. That gardening is also about care, how you're not just shaping, it's a special relationship between the plants and the person who is taking care of them. And also greenery are some of the words we came up with. And in action is plant a seed, irrigate, sow, mow, and my favorite, potato digging. And in some adjectives, we came up with fruitful, green, bushy. Bushy, I think, can be describe other things other than bushes.
Great. Any of these you could describe with anything. Oh, your effort is fruitful, I would say. This is hopefully by the end of, we heard 4 presentations. By the end, we hear the other 2 breakout group will have a bountiful of word choices with examples and in different analogies. Just to add on to more people and things, we could talk about different type of plants. We have evergreen, perennials, we have annuals, we have tall trees, bushes. Also inspired by the word greenery, there's nurseries, there are greenhouse, there's different places that you could, your front yard, this is different places you grow, you garden. Action, again, there's also all the process from planting a seedling, irrigating, sowing, and then also harvesting, or sometimes we call picking. I just went for picking blueberries the other day. So sometimes the fruit you're harvesting, you're picking. So all these good words, and gardening is really friendly, not lethal, really friendly way of incorporating in your speech, especially when you're talking about something like an educational topic you want to, when you come across as nurturing, gardening is a really good analogy to use. So thank you, Vadim, for sharing that. Okay, so now I'm looking towards the group who did travel as analogy. Who's in that group, travel? Who would like to present? All right. Did anybody?
Hi.
Who's in the?
Hello, Adarsh here from Travel Group.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I could not see other members. So the quote we have come up with, travel, it's in our DNA. If we have not traveled at least one time in our life's a waste. Travel gives us great experiences. We get to learn new people, new culture, new places, the uniqueness about that place, and you will wonder about a great new thing you have explored, which you never knew till date. And a quote by Dalai Lama: visit at least one new place once a year. And for me, this year, the new place that I've traveled, explored, enjoyed, cherished this moment too was Toastmasters Club. So this was the year that I entered Toastmasters, knew about Toastmasters. This has been a great session in our team. We had, I'm from India. There was one person from Ukraine, one from Bangladesh. So we are all lucky, fortunate to meet around, and that too over the internet without much money expense. So that's travel. Travel is in our blood DNA. So that always keeps us alive. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I see that the card is red. I just want to quickly, sorry, I'm not going to get to sports as a group, but sports is really easy because there is a lot of people, sports figure. You could be in a certain sport, you could be the defense, you could be the front runner. There's different position in a team. In action, there's all the different throwing, batting. There's all this different way to describe it, and also scoring is also a good thing. So all that is good. I just want to get to the end of my presentation. It's really that's it. I want to thanks everyone for coming. Hopefully my presentation has whet your appetite with the possibility of fiction, give you some food for thought. And also I've shared with you my tried and true recipe. So hopefully you'll get to try some of this idea in your next speech or presentation. And here's yours truly, aspiring Michelin star chef. And I'm also a alliteration aficionado. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having me. And I will turn the podium back to our Toastmaster this evening. Thank you.
Wow, I think this huge round of applause goes to our friend, guest speaker and workshop master, Janice Law. Actually, I am so happy that at least we try breakout rooms. Was like idea fixed maybe more than 2 years already, and finally we have it. So thanks again for organizing all this extreme for us, for to open our horizon, and of course for all content and for time you have you give us today. And now we move to another part of our today's meeting.